Okay, very good. Welcome to the Kingston Police Services Board meeting 21-19 for October 21st, 2021. I'd just like to welcome a couple of newcomers to our meeting. Deputy Chief Scott Fraser, welcome, and Lori Sargent, who will be our assistant with the board moving forward. Welcome, and we're very happy to have you. So looking at the agenda, is there a disclosure of conflict of interest? Okay. May I have an approval of the agenda?
I move.
Okay, so Jeff and Jimmy, thank you. All in favor? Good. Okay. And then can I get an adoption of the minutes for meeting 21-17 held on September 16th, 2021? Jeff? Bridget?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Good. Okay. Then we'll go into the communications from the Ministry of the Solicitor General. The first is the Towing Sector and Consumer Protection Act of 2002. If someone would like to speak to that.
Great, and thanks for your opening remarks, sir. I'm going to speak to the following reports, being the all chiefs memos that we received, and the first one here being the towing sector. So this is a document that is just basically outlining to the policing community. There was obviously with the issues going on in some areas, namely the GTA and the towing sector and corruption. There was some issues under the Consumer Protection Act in relation to price gouging regarding towing. And this document's just outlining that there's a real entity business where business had the ability or did not have the ability under the Consumer Protection Act, where a person did. But what they're identifying here is that a business who's representing a person can go through the Consumer Protection Act seeking a remedy if they were the victim of something in the towing industry. So essentially that's just what it's notifying the police community about.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Thank you. And then there's the amendments to the existing low-speed vehicles under the Highway Traffic Act.
Okay, and I'll speak to that as well. Essentially, in July of 2017, a 10-year pilot started with LSV, low-speed vehicles. For lack of a better term, they're almost like a fancy golf cart, I guess you could say. As they go through this 10-year pilot, they're coming up with different amendments to the pilot project. This one's identifying now that those vehicles were contained to only operating on highways that had a speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour or more. So they're notifying us that they can now cross a highway that has traffic control devices, whether yield sign, traffic lights. They can go across a highway that has 80 kilometers an hour speed limit. So that was just one of the amendments. They had other amendments about you could have them without doors on them now. And you know, you could only have so many people on the vehicle. Now, if the vehicle has 4 seats, you can have 4 people in those seats. But there's still the rules of if you're 8 years old or younger, you're not to be on it. So they're just notifying the policing public of some amendments to the current pilot project.
Okay, thank you. Next will be the Center of Forensic Sciences launching a new CFS website.
And this document's just outlining to the policing community and the public that they have created a new Center of Forensic Sciences website. And essentially it's a one-stop shop for people, whether you're public, a client, or someone in law enforcement. You can go to that website to learn everything you need. You know, in this day and age of electronic, obviously the ability to transfer things electronically. Officers could go there, for example, they have a investigator's guide. So, you know, if an officer had a question about the CFS, they can go right to the website now without having to call up and speak to somebody. So notification to the public about their new website, where it can be and what's all in it. So, you know, we obviously disseminate that internally as required.
Okay. Any questions? No, okay. Then we have the disclosure of police records and correctional facilities questionnaire.
Okay, and this document's just once again reaffirming the importance of law enforcement and corrections working together. Obviously, they go hand in hand. So it's sharing information that's pretty vital, and it's just outlining what our legislative authority is to release information in the policing context to those in the correctional facility. And it outlines the authorities like the Correctional Services Act or the Police Services Act, MFIPA, Freedom of Information Privacy Act, and why we can release that information, being obviously if it's reasonable and it's in the public interest, and the victim rights, the Victims Bill of Rights, that they can be notified in a timely fashion. So the police and corrections sharing information to ensure the safety of our public and to keep our public informed. So also what it did is it requested some information from the Kingston Police, and we have been following up with them. We've assigned a member who will fill out the survey, return it to corrections, and then we have a liaison that will be able to certainly corrections, if they needed some information, they can go directly to a source here. So we've completed all that.
Okay. Very good. And then we have the subject of development services.
Yeah, so with developmental services, this memo is just notifying the policing world of obviously the fact that sometimes there are people with developmental disabilities that come in contact with the justice system, and it was more of a resource document outlining after hours phone numbers, resources that are available to officers in the event they need that, just to ensure that some person who may have a developmental disability has all the information they need in the event they've come into contact with the police or someone in the justice field. And it's really just a resource officer, as we say, another tool in the toolkit for officers on the road that they can have all of this information at their fingertips. So once again, disseminated accordingly throughout the organization.
Okay.
Chair, can I just ask a quick question?
Of course.
Thanks for that, Deputy Chief Fraser. These kind of resource kit, the way you described it, what do we do with them instead? Do we just email them to all the members, or do we use them for some training opportunities as well? Yes,
and certainly being new to the organization, we do email them out, and then specifically we will go out if there's a training module that can be attached to it. I know that's taking place. I've been by the shift briefings in the mornings over the past 2 weeks, and there's been training going on most of the briefings that I've went to, most recently, which involved this exact thing, the mental health and developmental disabilities and things like that. So certainly that is it. And then we specifically ensure that the people in the specific section that may have a more of a response are equipped with it. So it's kind of twofold, just to once again have the ability to have it at your fingertips for sure, and then following up where required with the appropriate training internally.
Great, thanks.
And then can we speak to the Crime Prevention Week for 2021, the provincial theme and approach?
Yeah, certainly. So November 7th to 13th this year will be Crime Prevention Week in Ontario. So we have a week 2021. The core unit mainly will follow up on this. I met with them a few days ago in relation to it. They've already started developing some initiatives that'll be done. Of course, working to get through last weekend and this weekend, and then it'll be full on with regards to the theme, Safer Communities, Stronger Ontario. And they're developing some media stuff that goes out. And obviously in this document, they do provide us with a kind of a media toolkit. And then, coming up with local initiatives that will work to support Crime Prevention Week. And they're going to roll that out in the coming week.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and this is next is the SIU, the annual report. It's available on the SIU's website. Can someone speak to that?
Sorry, Scott, I wasn't sure if you were going to address that one.
Yeah, no problem. Essentially what happens is, just like in policing, the SIU will submit their annual report. They provided it electronically, so you can go in. And of course, it's available to the public at the SIU website as well, but they do forward it to every chief and police service. Once again, they will outline all the investigations they were in, the results that are publicly available. And of course, now the new the SIU Act that has just taken place. Obviously, there's some commentary, but it's really just from the SIU outlining their 2021 annual report on what they have done. So that would come directly from the director. And it's very similar to a police annual report, just outlining their yearly activities and statistics that go with the SIU.
Was there any questions from the board for this report? No. Okay. And then we have from the CAPG, the call for the proposals of 2023, the 34th annual conference. And that's just that. It's a short survey. Did anyone do that? And then there's CAPG Board of Directors for the elected at the 32nd Annual General Meeting. And then there's also meet the new executive or existing executive CAPG Executive Committee. Just letting us know. And then there's a message being sent on behalf of the chair of the Zone 2 of the KPSB. Talking about the meeting in Prince Edward County, which Bridget and I attended, which was useful in information. We also have the 2021 OAPSB Labor Conference, which some of the members of the board, including myself, should attend.
Speak up a little bit more loudly.
Yes, is there members of the board that would like to attend this? I know that, I think 2 years ago, Jeff, you and I attended it. I thought it was very helpful, especially when we were going into the collective agreement. Maybe we should do that again. A member of the board and myself. Anyone?
It is Zoom meetings. Well,
It's virtual. Yeah, it's a virtual labor conference.
oh,
Jimmy, would you like to do that?
when is that taking place?
November 18th, 2021.
November 18. No, that day I'm not available. Actually, just one day only. 17 and 18th. I'm in town, but I'm engaged with some business activities.
Okay. I'll go. Okay. Or I guess not go. I'll attend. If Donna, you can make that happen. And then
We'll have to talk about that because that's the same day as the November board meeting.
oh,
Although I imagine if it's a recorded session, you'd be able to just listen to it at your leisure.
yeah, I think that the last virtual meetings have all been recorded so that you can go back and so if that's the case, then yeah.
Okay, but you and Jeff would like to register for it?
Sure. Jeff, would you like to register for it?
Perhaps not this time.
Okay.
Okay. Our new executive, Lori, maybe you and I will do it. It'll be good for you.
Sure.
Jared, if we,
Just a question. If it's 2 days, 17 and 18,
No, it's just 18.
just the 18, yeah, because I'm engaged for 2 days, but I have to have only 1 day available for my activities, but I am not confirmed yet, either 17 or 18. I'm booked for 2 days, but 1 day will be taken. So if 18 is free, then I'll be able to join. Most likely 17, the thing's gonna take place, but if it's not, then I have to be there at 18. So I cannot promise, but I'm willing, if I'm free on 18, I'll join it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a date that is like a cutoff date for enrollment. So just keep us up to date if you could, Jimmy, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will know by mid of next week, everything, which day I have to be there in that meeting, 17 or 18. So then I will let you know.
Okay, cool.
and
Thank you.
Jared, did Donna say, or Donna, did you say that it's going to be recorded? And then if you attend and if it's recorded, could that be shared with the rest of the board?
I believe that we have to provide individual emails. So I don't know if it would work with someone else's email. But certainly we could register using the KPSB email, and even if you want to listen to it here at the station or in the office, that would work too.
Thanks.
Okay. Next is the OAPSB seeking support from the Police Services Board members. What did we do last year?
Last year, our support was by registering a few members for the conference. So
Let's do that this year then, that's fine. And then if we could speak to the Kingston Police budget. Chief, would you like to comment on that, or do you want to invite?
Yeah, John Howes will speak to that.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes. Welcome, John.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Perfect. This is the quarterly results up to the end of September that we present to you today. As you can see, our net cost for the 9 months to the end of September was $30,153,000 against a budget of $30,871,000. So we are running a surplus of $718,000. And that's quite a change from what we presented to you in June, but the grants did come in. We got caught up on those, okay? Will that surplus be there at year end? Highly unlikely. As we go through the year end, well, we've got an extra pay week. We've got a few more stat days, and there'll be probably some spending at Queens as well. So although it looks good at the end of September, that won't be there by the time we hit the end of the year. Just some highlights there on revenues. 9 months, 3.3 million against the budget of 3 million, 278,000 favorable. We did get the full CSP grant in, 720,000. So there's a timing of that of 180,000. The court security and prison transportation grant, we've received the 3 payments. There's a 4th one coming, but that grant was reduced by 74,000. So that unfavorability will be there at year end on that one. We did receive some additional grants, which we had not budgeted. There was a CSP grant, which we had put in for, didn't get, put in for, and did get. So it was not budgeted. It's for equipment. So that's providing some favorability there as well, about 95,000. Alarm licensing and revenues, 15,000 unfavorable. That I think will be on budget by year end. Expense recovery, we've had a few extra, just the timing of the payments come in for the seconded. So that's good. Background checks, auction proceeds. We do have a bike auction this Saturday at the Memorial Center at the Bennett Barn. Brad Schneider Auctions is carrying that, and he has it on his website. There's about 125 bikes. There's my plug for the bike auction. Paid duty is unfavorable by 30,000. I do have 50,000 I have not recorded yet. We've invoiced for it. I will accrue that for year end, so I expect that will be over budget by year end on that one. In terms of operating costs, 33,511,000 versus a budget of 33,900,000. We're favorable by 440,000. Salaries and wages are on budget at 17, but within there, we know overtime is unfavorable by 136. Overtime was favorable at the end of August, but of course the Queens have 124,000 spent on Queens that has pushed that over to be unfavorable. We have had, I've listed there a few of the incidents this year that we've had as well. Base wages, we are favorable by 299. We have been hiring fourth class this year, and that is giving us some budget relief as well. Part-time wages unfavorable by 66,000. That's really driven by some of the civilian positions where, as we've been hiring, we've been using part-time before we get the hires in place for the full-time. Plus there's a maternity leave we're covering with part-time as well. Fringe benefits are unfavorable by 44. It's turned around nicely since the June. It's always skewed to the first of the year. I think we'll probably be slightly favorable at the end of the year on benefits, which is good. Pay duty unfavorable by 36. That's because of the increased activity that we've seen going on there. Supplies and materials, we're 423,000 favorable. A few items there. Fuel, we're still favorable by 25,000. That will be gone by year end. We are using a bit less volume of liters of fuel, but of course the price is much higher than we budgeted. Education training is favorable by 65. Most things continue to be delayed or by virtual meetings. Travel is favorable by 53. With the COVID, we just aren't going anywhere. Investigative services, 107 favorable. There were no new projects in the last bit. And contracted services, as always, were favorable by 174,000. We do have a number of maintenance projects in the last quarter that will eat some of that up. So there's your results to the end of September. Any questions on that?
Are we missing Christian? I don't see him on my. No questions, John.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna, can you confirm that Christian's not in the meeting?
It seems to have been, maybe his internet went out. He may have to join again.
Okay. We'll continue because we have quorum. Okay, so we have a quarterly statistical report, January to September.
I can comment on that. So when we look at the report, the crimes against persons over the past 9-month period have increased slightly from last year. But when you look at the last quarter, July to September, they've actually decreased in comparisons to last year's timeframe. So our sexual offenses have increased, and some comments are that is in March of 2021, we've partnered with Vesta Community in partnership with the Kingston Police and Sexual Assault Center, and it officially launched its online tool for anonymous recording and reporting of sexual assault incidents. And through this system, survivors can document their own story in their own words and at their own pace. And once completed, they can choose what happens next. They can submit a report anonymously, connect to counseling, or report to the police, or save it for later. That's their choice. So to date, there have been 6 reports that have been shared with the Kingston Police for investigation. So it's another alternative way for reporting to us. So another driver in the crimes against persons really are the frauds, as we've commented on before. Most recently, we've been seeing the taxi scam, where one person acts as the taxi driver and another acts as a customer. And while the vehicles are parked along the road, the customer exits the vehicle, approaches a victim and says that they're unable to pay for their fare and asks for assistance. Usually it's a small amount, $7 or $10, something like that. Many victims are not concerned about this amount, and they offer to help, providing their credit card. And during that transaction, the suspect uses a skimming machine to obtain the person's PIN number. And the suspect then retains the victim's card and gives them back a fake card, which many people don't notice. The suspect then attends ATM machines and withdraws money or makes purchases. So that's a scam that's been going around just to alert different ways of things happening to people being victimized within our community. Crimes against property have increased with break-and enters and mischiefs being some drivers. The drug offenses are also up. And this is reflective of our enforcement strategies. The criminal code traffic offenses have also increased, which includes prohibited driving, impaired driving, dangerous driving, fail to remain, those kinds of things. And I can move on to our use of force quarterly report if you'd like.
Please.
Okay. So in our report, we have had 22 incidents between July and September. And 3 incident involves firearms discharge, which is a result of injured animals. So we had 1 livestock and 2 deer collisions. We've had a number of incidents where firearms have been pointed or displayed, which were the result of drug search warrants where the emergency response unit gains entry into the residence. And another incident where the emergency response unit responded to a barricaded male, possibly armed with a handgun, and the male was arrested without an incident. Some examples of where a pointing of a firearm occurs in our community. Another call where the ERU responded to a residence where a male was holding a female and was armed with 2 firearms, and the male was arrested without incident. We also had another gunpoint arrest by patrol officers where there was a 911 call, shots fired, and it was determined that there had been a shot. The suspect was located behind a convenience store with a gunpoint arrest, and again, no injuries. There's been some examples of the conducted energy weapons being displayed. Police have responded to a call for service for a female in her apartment armed with a knife. The CEW was drawn and de-escalation techniques were used. She dropped the knife and was apprehended. A 911 call for a male threatening to kill people with a knife. Subject was located. 1 officer had the firearm drawn, another had the CEW displayed, de-escalation, and arrested without incident. So some of the examples that have occurred in that time period.
Bridget, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you for that report, Chief McNeely. I just want to go back to the taxi scam. Do we use social media to educate the public? Yeah,
absolutely. That's utilized, and there's also, it goes out into the media, the regular routine media as well, so that it's distributed in many different ways.
thanks.
And I thought I'd use this opportunity now as well, just to bring that to the attention.
Mhm. Jimmy?
Yes, once again, thank you, Chief, for the report. My question is any a study or any report available to find out what was the reason to increase those incidents, whether it's a sexual assault or those scams and other crimes in the city?
Well, one of the examples that I provided, I think, is there's, especially with sexual assaults, you know, there's many different mechanisms that people can now report. And there's one mechanism in itself with Vesta Community provided an opportunity of an extra 6 people reporting to the police. So I'm just saying that, you know, there's lots of different services that are available to surround people, to assist in counseling. And when they're ready, they're able to report matters to the police. And this highlighted one particular way that added an extra 6 sexual assault investigations to it. So not necessarily a bad thing. I think there's good things that we're getting to people who want to report are reporting, and we can do the follow-up investigation with additional support from sexual assault centers and other counseling agencies. The frauds, again, you know, we're looking a bit about the pandemic and opportunities for crime, and online type harassments and threats are occurring when a lot more people are online. So I think the impacts of the pandemic are there as well as underlying reasons that are happening. So, you know, even, you know, as stores are opening up again, you know, the thefts are occurring, could potentially be occurring. So again, the pandemic does change the way that crime patterns are happening.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Next is to the members of the board from Donna Harrington. Board policy on Chief of Police Performance Review Systems with the upcoming.
Actually,
change.
next, Jared, will be the budget presentation.
Next is the budget presentation.
Yes, yes.
If you could, please.
So I've got some assistants here to help me get this up and going so I can share the screen and go ahead from there. So here's TJ. So it's on the bottom right, is the PowerPoint? Yeah. So, where is your mouse though? Oh, I just, okay.
Donna, it says that the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Double check that. Should be able to screen share.
No, it's still coming up as disabled.
Well, another option, I can make Chief the host, which she should be able to then share direct. As a panelist, it should have worked, but
Okay, just let me know when that's good to go.
sorry, what's that?
Just let me know when that's good to go.
I've just made.
Oh, we're the host now.
So
Okay. Share only host. Perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and share the screen, and we've selected the PowerPoint. So I haven't selected that the full screen will be shared, just the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
There we go.
And that came from the bottom right, the bottom of the channel. Okay.
Yeah, the PowerPoint. And then it's in the green box here. So your controls, like that. And then you can do your PowerPoint.
So does it go full screen at each page? Or?
I can go to slideshow and from beginning. Okay, and can everybody still see that?
Yes.
Okay, and when I have to flip it, which
You just press the little arrow keys down here.
okay,
Okay,
all right, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much. Right, so let us begin. So today's, I'm gonna get a glass of water for a second here. There we go. All right, so today's presentation includes the annual report for 2021, as well as the proposed budget for 2022. In terms of the budget preparations, we've worked collaboratively with CFO, City Treasurer Desiree Kennedy, and we're guided by our strategic plan priorities, as well as the Police Services Act. So the year 2021 has continued to be extraordinary, not only because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the opioid and drug poisoning crisis, and associated addictions and mental health concerns, but also due to the negative impact on trust and confidence in policing globally, the impact that influencers and insiders have on social media followers, and the impact of mass gatherings on communities, to name but a few. We're also seeing changes in the types of crimes being reported in our community, as we've noted here today, such as an increase in the cyber type related crimes, and we've got an increase in use and seizure of guns related to crimes being committed. The Kingston Police 2019-2022 strategic plan sets out these 5 key priorities, and they speak to areas where special attention and resources and effort are needed over the next 4 years. This is over and above all the great work that's already being done by our members 24/7 and 365 days a year. So under this heading, designing new ways to deal with challenging social trends, I can list a number of items that we've accomplished. So in the fall of 2021, Kingston Police have worked with Addictions Mental Health KFLNA to develop a memorandum of understanding that allows for the diversion of low-risk calls for service involving individuals in a mental health crisis to the on-call crisis team. This will allow for the appropriate response from our partner agencies where public safety is not an issue, divert the number of mental health calls for service away from our frontline response, and increase the capacity of uniform patrol to do some proactive work. Training on this memorandum of understanding is currently being completed for our members, and it's anticipated that the program will be rolled out by the end of the year so that we can be gathering some statistics on that. The mobile crisis rapid response team and the crisis outreach and support team model, which partners police with addiction mental health workers to better handle calls for service with persons in crisis, as we know, began in 2019 and as a result of a grant that was provided to us. So this service was initially available to us for our community for a maximum of 16 hours out of a 24-hour period. But I'm pleased to say that in March of 2021, this has expanded to a pilot project with 20-hour availability due to temporary funding made available by Addictions Mental Health KFLNA through an Ontario Health COVID funding grant that they had. And this was based on data indicating that we had increased volumes for persons in crisis that go well beyond the 16 hours a day. So this funding for them ends in March 31st, 2022. Kingston Police is currently applying for funding to make the pilot project permanent through a grant beginning April 1st of 2022. So since the implementation of the MCERT and COAST model, we've seen a reduction in apprehension rates from initially 46% in 2019 to about 38% in 2021. In terms of hospital wait times for our officers, it's been reduced from over 2 hours in 2019 to about an hour in 2021. This is a valuable program that's been identified as a need as well through our community safety and well-being plan. In terms of the opioid and drug poisoning epidemic, Kingston Police recognizes that the issues of substance abuse or substance use and addiction is a public health matter, and therefore we support a collaborative 4-pillar approach to address this. That's including prevention, education, harm reduction, treatment, and enforcement. In terms of enforcement, our drug unit in conjunction with street crime focuses on individuals and organized crime groups that traffic and illegally manufacture and import drugs into our community, including fentanyl and crystal meth. From January 1st to September 30th of 2021, the Drug Enforcement Unit has made 107 arrests and laid 337 charges with a value of $1.4 million in street value of drugs that's been seized, $274,000 in cash, and $240,000 in vehicles seized for a total value of $1.9 million. And this is an increase of 33% from 2020. In terms of training, we are currently educating our members this fall on trauma-informed care and adverse childhood experiences to bring an understanding to the complex social issues of mental health and addictions through a public health lens. This will continue to be expanded upon in 2022. Members of our core unit have created a Kingston Police protocol with the Integrated Care Hub that sets out objectives and outcomes, including creating a positive working relationship between the members of the Kingston Police and the Hub, a mutual understanding of duties and responsibilities of each other, acknowledging that the Integrated Care Hub is a regulated healthcare facility, and as such, Kingston Police recognizes the privacy concerns that surround this designation and standardized procedures for each partner. Sergeant Nasanayagam actively participates in the newly developed and city-led Community Liaison Committee, directed specifically to the community surrounding the Integrated Care Hub, as well as the clients and staff of the Integrated Care Hub. The goal is to decrease stigma, problem-solve community concerns, and coexist as neighbors. Kingston Police is committed to increasing police presence in this neighborhood through our core unit, as well as our mounted unit, which bridges the most vulnerable members of our community in addition to frontline responding to calls for service. The municipality was tasked in completing a community safety and well-being plan by July 1st, 2021, with myself and Board Representative Jeff McLaren participating on the advisory committee. This plan was adopted by Council in June of 2021 and contained 8 key recommendations for action, including things that we've been working on, including enhanced 24/7 community-based addiction and mental health services, and training and education across the service system on trauma-informed care, including awareness of adverse childhood experiences. So this advisory committee will continue with the implementation plan starting the fall of 2021. Finally, in this area of youth safety initiatives, the Crime Prevention Unit has filled a vacancy in their Community Programs Officer position with an emphasis on mental health and addictions and youth police partnerships and homelessness. So our youth officer has increased engagement with the youth population through the youth shelter and continues to work with youth diversion. The partnership with youth diversion also includes the Intersections program, which is an evidence-informed early intervention program for children and youth who are at risk of becoming justice or child welfare involved, and provide supports to their families as needed. A new initiative began in September of 2020, which intersection staff are embedded within the Kingston Police, working with our core unit in order to increase referrals to this program. 128 referrals were made between September of 2020 and March of 2021, and data analysis from the April to September 2021 timeframe indicates that the number of police interventions have decreased by 50%, thereby diverting calls for service away from police response and the intersections program. In addition, 85 frontline officers have been trained in intersections referrals. School resource officers continue their partnership with school boards and the elementary and secondary school levels, and they're participating in an increased number of threat assessment meetings in 2021, as well as calls for service compared to last year. In terms of a new evidence-informed policing and staffing model, we are, in terms of the patrol zone alignment, in 2021, the Kingston Police have introduced the new frontline staffing schedule based on the collaboration with the consultants from Strategic Direction and an inclusive working committee. So an assessment of this new schedule will occur near the end of October, with additional meetings to discuss and research the zone realignments. The results of this will flow into 2022. As part of our evidence-informed policing, we have trained members of our property crime unit in technology-based courses as investigative tools. And to date in 2021, they've completed digital technologies investigators course, social media intelligence, internet as a research tool, and open source intelligence. There will be a debriefing with the unit to assess the benefits of these courses as it applies to their current duties. In terms of pursuing strategic traffic enforcement, the traffic unit has been working collaboratively with the City of Kingston with respect to their red light camera program to identify top intersections for camera placement using data from the Collision Reporting Center. And this program will be launched in March of 2022. Our traffic unit is part of the Community Fatal Collision Review Committee organized with the Regional Coroner's Office and the City of Kingston to make infrastructure recommendations as a result of debriefings involving fatal collisions. Our traffic enforcement members receive continued advanced training in motor vehicle accident reconstruction, remotely piloted aircraft system training, total station training with the assistance of mapping of evidence at accident scenes, motorcycle collisions, pedestrian collisions, and commercial motor vehicle inspections. We also participate in the annual CACP, which is the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police traffic initiatives that are done throughout the year. For an example, Operation Impact in October was education enforcement, which focuses on impaired, aggressive, and distracted driving. And that was done as well in May, addressing the same themes. To retain, recruit, and develop the best policing team possible, we've identified a number of training sessions that we've made available. I've talked a bit about the positive psychology. So our leadership training entails a number of new initiatives, including this online certificate course for our supervisors. And it was provided to us from Laurier University on positive psychology. We had 18 supervisors ranging in rank of sergeant to staff sergeant, and they were enrolled in March of 2021 and are nearing the completion of the program now in November, which includes the capstone project, which has the potential to be rolled out within our organization. So I've been receiving consistently good feedback on the benefits of the course. The new promotional process was developed by a committee involving representation across the organization, including the association executive, with competencies built into the performance evaluations and succession planning. This was reviewed through an EDI and human rights and legal lens, and this policy has been completed and the process has been rolled out this fall, starting with the inspector process, then the staff sergeant, and finally the sergeant's process. Peer support training has been provided by our Wounded Warriors Canada, called Before Occupational Stress, which was provided to our peer supporters in the spring of 2021. In September of 2021, we hosted the Wounded Warriors Train the Trainer course on trauma resiliency, And this was opened up to 2 members of our peer support team, local fire departments, local policing partners, paramedics, and 2 members of the integrated care hub. And this will allow in-house training for all our members in training trauma resilience. Beginning in March of 2021, all members received the cultural competency training, a toolkit for respectful workplaces and service to the public. This has now been completed. In terms of the development of a recruit mentorship program, Constable Trevor Bethune of our training unit has designed a recruit operational readiness training program, which has additionally been built into their training with coach officers. And it focuses on resilience skills development as they become exposed to a variety of calls for service on the road. We've also focused on more in-house training. Constable Bethune has developed an investigative detention workshop for patrol lineups, which was delivered several times in the spring. Later in the fall, there will be a statement admissibility workshop, and that'll also be delivered. This will be a regular occurrence, a proactive strategy to provide extra support and learning opportunities for all our members, with an emphasis on with our junior members. 8 members have received a train the trainer program to be able to deliver the in-house Ontario Police College course, Criminal Investigations Techniques. So that'll allow us to run this course within our organization and to be able to reach out to other organizations to come here and take this course. Constable Brian McMillan is our Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Officer and is currently part of the 2021 fall training to update, inform, and to create some dialogue within our members of the Kingston Police on our Equity, Divergent, Inclusion and Indigenization Strategic Plan, as well as the reassurance program for hate incidents reported to the police. To safeguard our reputation and invest in relationships, we pursue collaborative relationships with our community and our provincial partners. For example, in 2021, members of the Kingston Police have partnered with the Provincial Hate Crime Extremism Investigative Team, which enhances our capacity to investigate hate crimes and strengthens our partnership with the members of the team, which includes 16 other police services. Identified members of the Kingston Police have received specialized training on hate crimes and related issues, including Constable Brian McMillan. And he has just, as I mentioned, recently initiated the reassurance program, which has been developed to ensure that members of our community who are victimized by hate-motivated crimes and incidents receive the necessary supports, safety planning, and education as required as part of our service delivery, and will include services provided by other community partners as well. This in addition to any ongoing criminal investigation. This is in addition to any other criminal investigations that are ongoing. This position also includes a recruitment outreach component to attract young people of diverse backgrounds into the policing vocation. And as of November 1st, 2020, the Kingston Police have seconded one of our members to the OPP Joint Forces Human Trafficking Team for the East Region. The team's goal is to identify and disrupt human trafficking and child exploitation organizations operating in Ontario and address the threat against organized crime. We have also had a success story in which one of our officers has played an integral role to locate a male who was wanted on multiple warrants pertaining to human trafficking. Currently, there are 25 human trafficking cases before the courts in East Region. This crime is very much underreported to police, and our school resource officers, as well as our street crime, have received additional training to educate school-age children from grade 7 and on, as well as those who are not in the education system, but may be part of the shelter system on how to protect themselves from becoming victimized. In January of 2021, the Kingston Police partnered with Dr. Jack Davies and relied on her expertise as a cross-cultural expert and founder of Mosaic Cross-Cultural Solutions. And she supported us with our strategic plan on equity, diversity, and inclusion. This began with a review of specific policies and procedures through an EDI, human rights, and legal lens. This past spring, she led a preliminary consultations with members of Kingston's Black community. These consultations provided me and my leadership team with invaluable information, which we used as a starting point in the creation of the new partnership with Kingston Community Health Centers. And this partnership was publicly launched in June of 2021 with the goal of hosting a series of community consultations to help the Kingston Police learn more about Kingston residents through a dialogue focused on building and mending relationships. Ultimately, this partnership will inform the creation of the Community Inclusion Council, which will be a new advisory body to the Chief and Police Services Board, and that will help bring community members and the Kingston Police together. Plans are underway for the council to be created in 2022. Constable Brian McMillan has developed an EDI webpage on the Kingston Police website, which outlines the work that we're doing in the community, as well as listing resources that are available. The next step include the development of an internal working group committee made up of cross sections of members within the Kingston Police to bring matters of importance to the attention of the senior leadership team. And part of this is introducing this at our fall training session to get people oriented to the things that we're going to be doing. And finally, as part of the improvement of internal communications, our 2021 budget included funding for Office 365 licenses, and a component of Office 365 includes an intranet as part of our internal communications. So an RFP was issued earlier in the year for licenses, which are now in place. We've got an agreed upon statement of work with a vendor who has experience in providing and implementing this project. So it's anticipated to be finalized and rolled out in the spring of 2022. Technology. Kingston Police, KCHC, and the City of Kingston have partnered with a startup company, Spectra Plasmodics, to help drug detection technology that can help identify the type of drug and cutting agents in particular samples. And there's been a pilot project in the community to help prevent overdoses and deaths. On July 16th, 2021, our peer support team launched a new app called Kingston Police Peer Connect, which gives members and their families access to our peer support team, as well as access to health and wellness articles, resources, self-assessment tools, and events. The app is being actively used by our members, which includes referrals to peer supporters, as well as to Wounded Warrior programming. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a partnership with Vesta Community and the Sexual Assault Center Kingston to allow for the ability to report online recordings and reporting of sexual assault incidents. And as I've mentioned to date, there have been 6 reports that have been shared with the Kingston Police for investigation. In September of 2021, Kingston Police and the City of Kingston partnered to offer 529 Garage to the Kingston community to help decrease bicycle theft. This application is currently being utilized by police services in Ontario, and the app works to alert other Kingston bicyclists anytime a bike is stolen or gone missing. And once the user determines his or her bike is missing, they activate the alert notification, which sends out a broadcast to users in the area and to be on the lookout. Additionally, it would redirect users to the Kingston Police online reporting so that they can complete an online report in order to legally claim their bike if recovered. In terms of Kingston statistics, in 2021 year to date, there have been 278 bicycles reported stolen. In 2020, we've had 362 bicycles reported stolen. And in 2019 and 18, we have had 401 bikes stolen, respectively. In terms of some policing statistics, the priorities identified in the plan, as I mentioned before, are the areas where special attention and resources and efforts are needed over the next 3 to 5 years. Again, this is over and above all the activities, investigations, and enforcement that's being done by our members on a daily basis. I'm highlighting some of the statistics here for you. In 2020, members in our communities members in our communications service answered 55,300 911 calls for service per year. In 2020, our officers responded to over 50,000 calls for service, including online reports that were filed and taken at the front desk and dispatched. Our online reporting has increased in number of reports filed in 2020 by 42% over the prior year of 2019. And this is likely due to the pandemic and encouraging online reporting. In from January 2021 to September, there've already been 3,414 reports filed, which is exceeding the pace of 2020. In terms of some motor vehicle collision data, in 2020, we've had 2,257 motor vehicle collisions in total, which was a decrease of 35% from 2019, likely as a result of the reduced traffic due to the pandemic. In 2020, our accident reconstructionists in the traffic unit who respond to motor vehicle collisions where there's death or serious injury have responded to 9 accidents, 6 of them which were fatalities and 3 where there's serious bodily harm. In 2021 year to date, as of September 30th, they have responded to 12 such accidents, with 5 being fatalities. Constable Mike Rice of our traffic unit also partners with our local police agencies and the Ministry of Transportation to conduct commercial motor vehicle blitzes in our area. So in 2020, there were 135 inspections that were conducted. 54 of these commercial motor vehicles were taken out of service. 3 sets of plates received, 55 charges were laid, and 7-day suspensions were issued for alcohol-related offenses. Criminal charges saw from January to December 31st in 2020, 6,115. Number of persons arrested from January to December of 2020 were 2,122. To talk a little bit about our current staffing levels, we have an authorized strength of 201 sworn officers, plus an additional 10 that were hired in 2020 to backfill for the long-term absences, for a total of 211 officers. We currently have 61 full-time civilian employees and 28 part-time employees for a total of 300 members. There are 11 officers who are away from work due to LTD, WSIB, and the suspension with pay, and 2 civilian members away from work due to WSIB and the suspension. This leaves us with 200 sworn and 59 civilian members actively at work. Looking a bit on comparative staffing levels, based on the 2019 Statistics Canada population information, Kingston has 154.2 police officers per 100,000 population. For clarification, the number of police officers shown that's highlighted there, which is at 205, included our seconded officers minus those on LTD at that given point in time in June of 2019. If you look at the boxes there on my right-hand side, maybe your right-hand side as well, we have recalculated in the first box to incorporate our current officer complement of 111, which gives us 158.7 officers per 100,000 population. Recalculated in the second box with 11 sworn absences gives us 150.4 officers per 100,000. And in the final box, the bottom box, with the student population included and the 11 absences, we have 122.7 officers per 100,000 population. Our IT would like to present a business case to add an additional staff within our IT department. So our IT department consists of 4 staff currently: a director, an IT specialist, an IT assistant, and an IT application analyst trainer. These positions in that trade, the last position was hired in 2020. These positions have enabled us to have an expanded on-site user support program from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday, with the exception of holidays and sickness. We've been able to accomplish quite a bit more with IT upgrades in a timely fashion. And we're working on taking full advantage of the applications to be as efficient and cost effective as possible, with the addition of being able to provide some training to our members. Monitoring the workload, though, the current staffing model does not allow the newest IT analyst trainer to do much application training, as there's still a greater need to address user support capacity within our organization. With this in mind, the addition of 1 additional full-time IT specialist person will address this requirement, thereby increasing the productivity of our members. As the Kingston Police increasingly rely on more technology, our operations are significantly improved when users are trained on all the capabilities of the applications and have timely supports when required. The upcoming projects which will benefit from the addition of one IT resource includes further moving from desktop to laptops, enhancing security capabilities, NG911, which is occurring, e-ticketing, electronic ticketing, electronic motor vehicle collision reporting, so submitting that via electronics, and radio system upgrades. So to minimize the impact on the 2022 budget, it is proposed to hire this person starting in November of 2022. So the proposed 2022 budget, how much should be invested in policing to keep our members and our community safe? Our proposed total operating costs are $46.8 million, which has been reduced to $42.6 million through outside revenues of $4.1 million. This represents a net increase of 3.64% over the 2021 budget, which equates to just under $1.5 million. In preparing for the 2022 budget, the following costs are out of our control and have increased the 2022 budget forecast by about 1% or $396,000. We assumed status quo in 2021 for the current court security prisoner transportation grant, when in fact our grant was decreased by $74,000, which we were recently advised of. Increased city charge services include insurance for building and vehicles, building maintenance, and capital reserve fees, which is a total increase by $75,050. Increased gasoline prices in 22 as recommended by the city equates to $47,548. The impact of WSIB on our organization is $73,926. Contractual change in the healthcare spending account is $34,137. In 2021, we had unanticipated maternity leave absences in our human resources unit, requiring contract hiring for a short-term replacement, and at a cost of $41,600. Contractual change covering up to $10,000 for SIU legal fees adds approximately $50,000 based on an average of 5 SIU investigations per year. So if one takes into account the above items, which are out of our control, the actual budget increase is really 2.68% or $1.1 million. Our overall revenues are projected to increase by 1.51% or 61,800. And this is taking into account our cannabis enforcement team secondment for 30,800. So that explanation is in 2021, the contract wasn't signed yet, and we are receiving additional money that was not accounted for. Cost recovery for search and preparation of record requests takes into account about 92,000. Our prisoner transportation and court security grant, again, as I mentioned, was reduced by 74,000. And our rope unit, being our repeat offender parole program, this is a fine tuning where we are invoicing the OPP for our 2 seconded officers. Budget changes in wages and benefits. Wages and benefits increased by just over $1 million in 2022. And some of the highlights include wage increases, which account for 611,000. Hiring 4th class officers when members retire provide a cost savings of about 459,000. Officers going through the pay grid progressions cost $483,000. CPP legislative increases in 2022 cost $96,100. OMER's pension contribution due to wage increases cost $97,900. And deferring the hire of a new information technology civilian member in November cost $12,100. The impact of WSIB cost $73,000. So overall wages and benefits account for 85.3% of the total budget operating costs. Supplies and materials account for just 6.6% of the total operating budget and reflects an increase of $154,900. Some highlights include fuel cost increase by $47,500, aligned with the city recommendations. We have a senior police leadership training at University of Toronto, being at the Rotman School of Management, as well as a junior leadership development program through Queen's University for members early on in their careers. And this is totals to $46,300. Cybersecurity and incident response retainer is $25,000. We've got some internal focus group sessions as part of forming our internal EDI committee and assisting with the Community Inclusion Council. Handheld GPSs for search and rescue at another 9,000. Building maintenance and repair for 11,000. Cell phone usage and telecommunications for 6,000, and fleet supplies have increased by 5,000. Contracted services have increased by 10.93% or 346,200 over the 2021 budget. Reflected in these increases are contractual change covering up to $10,000 for SIU legal fees based on the average 5 SIU investigations per year. So that's for a value of 50,000. Increase in city insurance rates are 59,800 for building and vehicle insurance. Unanticipated maternity leave absence. Unanticipated maternity leave absence in our human resources unit requiring contract hiring Term replacement is 41,600. Contractual change in the healthcare spending account, as mentioned, was 34,000. Strategic plan preparations beginning next year will cost us 10,000. Investigative software and city building shared services, 10,000 there. And then there's a number of various software enhancements in IT, which I've listed there, but come to a total of 94,000. The city charges us an allocation each year that goes to police capital reserves. This has been increased by 2% as per the city request for a $5,200 increase in 2021. Contributions to reserve represents 0.6% of the total operating costs. This slide shows that we are working diligently to control the yearly increases in our budget. The 2020 increase was as a result of hiring the 10 officers, extra officers to backfill for officers that are away from work on WSIB. The 2021 increase was a result of funding loss in grants, which if they had been received, they would put us back on track to 2.54%. And likewise with 2022, the requested increase is as a result of a number of matters out of our control, as already outlined in the presentation, for 396,000. And if these matters were taken into consideration of our budget, the increase would be lower, back down to 2.68%, so much in line with prior years. This is a graph that looks at policing costs compared to other municipalities. And it's a grid with the financial information return or FIR costs for 2020. And it's as a tool used to address some comparisons. FIR is the main data collection tool used by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to collect financial and statistical information on municipalities. Although there are limitations when comparing costs across municipalities, because everyone does things a little bit differently across the province, this is the first year where cost recovery has been included in the data, and therefore is still a good measurement to review and monitor trends. So this slide depicts the costing for policing in Kingston with a population of 124,148 as $355 per capita or per person. And it shows some comparisons to our comparators below with Sarnia and Guelph, Barrie, Belleville. This slide depicts the Kingston Police budget over the past 3 years, 2019, 2020, and 2021, and shows that we continue to come in on budget with very little surplus. The forecast for our 2021 year-end budget is uncertain, due in part to the added overtime expenditures that we've incurred through September and October, addressing the unprecedented number of individuals and associated behaviors in the University District, as well as bringing additional policing resources to assist us with unsanctioned homecoming and the second fake homecoming weekend. So in order to help mitigate these expenses, we have done the following. We've hired 4th class constables to replace retirements, delaying and hiring replacements for retirements within the year. The pandemic has allowed for remote work from home, which has provided some soft cost savings. More training done by Zoom rather than in person saves on mileage, accommodation, and meals. Hosting training on site rather than sending members out of our jurisdiction has saved some money. Utilizing alternative response to calls for service by using community partners such as noise complaints with our bylaw, and that's diverted actually 24.5% of noise calls from the Kingston Police. COVID-19 enforcement through bylaw, as well as homelessness encampments, and low-risk mental health calls for service. The data is yet to be determined on that as we're moving towards that. We also recognize that there will be some cost recovery from City and Queen's University to assist us with the additional expenses that we've incurred. Over the next 3 years, from 2023 to 2025, we projected annual increases of 2.87%, 2.85%, and 2.83%. And these forecasts assume an inflation rate of 2% per year on operational costs, maintaining the $200,000 transfer from reserves to the police budget in 2023, reducing transfers to $100,000 in 2024 and concluding the $100,000 transfer in 2025, Staffing levels remaining unchanged from the 22 budget. No change in government grants from the 2021 budget, as well as the balance of the status quo of the budget is status quo. Budget challenges. So forecasting our budget for 2022 comes with risks, many of which again are outside of municipal and police controls. We have assumed that background check revenues and the records cost recovery will return to pre-pandemic levels. That court security prisoner transportation grant will remain the same as in 2021, which is $1.2 million. And that the community safety and policing grant, the local initiative, which expires March 31st of 2022, the assumption that it will be continuing at $712,936 per year. So that total risk could potentially be $2.7 million. Additional factors to be taken into consideration are that both collective agreements expire December 31st of 2022, which will have an impact on the 3-year forecast. Government policy changes such as the regulations for the new Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act may impact future budgets. There's an indication that this may be completed by the spring of 2022. And the impact of globalization and what occurs in other countries cannot be understated, as those incidents have potential to affect our local communities. The shifting of crime within our community also impacts the cost of investigations. The number of members away from work due to WSIB and long-term disability also impacts staffing levels. To offset these challenges and these in the 2022 budget and to offset the budget increase, we have considered the following. We've considered the hiring of 4th-class constables to replace some retirements. The 2022 budget benefits from hiring 4th class in 2021 as well as in 2020. We reduced our fuel consumption for 2020 budget based on past trends. We've reduced electricity budget by $26,000 based on LED and solar panels. Increasing the purchase of hybrid vehicles will help offset fuel consumption and reduced emissions, although at this time, hybrid vehicles have a long lead time to order because of the chip shortage. We've increased revenues in the records and area pertaining to search and preparation of records requests. Remote work from home for accommodation purposes provides some soft savings. More training is done by Zoom and in-house rather than traveling to other jurisdictions, saving in mileage and accommodation and meals. Court appearances by Zoom provide some soft costs. Community partners to respond to calls for service where public safety is not an issue. As I have already mentioned, bylaw responding to noise complaints, COVID enforcement, homelessness, and our intersections partnerships where the trends indicate a reduction in calls for service for youth at risk. Our capital request is $2.3 million, which is within the envelope that the city has set aside for us. In terms of fleet, we'll be replacing 12 vehicles throughout the units with a focus on hybrid vehicles for frontline patrol. This will allow for reduced fuel usage and greenhouse emissions. Hybrid and/or electric vehicles can be considered for other areas of our service. The fleet plan is continually reviewed throughout the year based on functional needs, and through this evaluation, vehicles can be deferred or repurposed throughout the fleet. In order to maintain information technology and infrastructure, $1.5 million have been allotted. And some highlights include server replacements, encryption key protection related to security, wellness, increased camera coverages for security for $70,000, replacing physical access card readers. Our current system is about 15 years old, requires replacements, refreshing some desktops again to laptops of $65,000. Some security appliance features called checkpoint sandblast appliances, firewall replacements, and air conditioner in the server room for $100,000. There's also room for $155,000 for critical incident equipment. And that's the budget.
Thank you, Angie. Bridget, would you like to ask a question?
Thanks for the presentation, Chief McNally. You mentioned homecoming and that there will be a cost recovery from Queens. Was that allocated in this budget? Like, did you?
No. No, we don't know yet how much is going to be flowing. So certainly Queens has money that's going through the city, and the city will be parceling out that money.
And at what stage in the budget process will you know the numbers that could be included? And perhaps reduce the increase?
Yeah, John, just correct me if I'm wrong. We have not received, you have not put anything else in our budget from Queens. I just wanted to just verify that.
In the 2022 budget, which is next year's budget, I've put in $100,000 from Queens, like I've put in $100,000 worth of costs for next year's homecoming. So it balances each other out. The big question is, I think the current year, 2021, which we're trying to forecast, where we know we're spending a lot more money and we know we're probably going to get something from Queens, but we're not sure. Hence the asterisk on the forecast for where we'll think we'll be at the end of this year. But next year we do have 100 revenue and we do have 100 for expenses. So it is an offset from 2022.
Okay, thanks. Have we had some negotiations with Queens to perhaps that they actually make sure that it is always balanced? That we send them a bill at the end of homecoming and they pay for the bill?
I know that that it goes through the flows through the city. So they do not directly go through us. They will go through the city in terms of any cash flow.
But do they have an indication on how much it's going to cost us, or by the time next weekend, this weekend coming is done, can we send them a bill?
I know that they've committed to paying $350,000, I believe. And that again flows through the city.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Question? Jeff?
Thank you. Quick question about last year's homecoming. Did Queens pay for that, and was that fully cost recovered?
So last year, it was all virtual and there was not very much. Sorry, you've got a lot of noise in the background there, Jeff, if you could just maybe. Thank you. Yeah. So last year was virtual, so there was very little expenditure. So we did not get money coming in from that last year. But it was a different climate last year.
Is there any possibility that we could ask them at least to, on going forward, that they would do a full cost recovery? Like if we're not, I think it is more important that we set the process going so that it becomes a permanent feature, that any increases in costs as a result of their policies and their really liberal policies on this get covered by them. Can we start something like that?
We are talking as the mayors with the mayor and myself and Patrick Dean have been having those high level conversations to talk about that. And that's exactly where this amount of money for this year has come about. So I guess that's the starting process to continue on with those conversations for sure. So I totally agree with you.
On another note, you mentioned that this budget was within the envelope given to you by the city. I'm curious as to, are we doing the bare minimums, or can we do better than, like, not just at the limit of what the city is allowing us to spend, but can we do better? Because I do know that we've got a lot of other costs that we have to pay.
Well, I know that, when I say that it's within the envelope, that's for the 2022 capital budget request. And that capital side is within the envelope that the city has set aside for us, so that the $2.3 million.
And what about on the operating side?
So can you just rephrase your question for me so I understand what you're asking?
So I understand there's like a 2.8 something increase in the budget of what we can control. And I was under the impression the city's budget, at least with operating, was 2.4, 2.5, like that. It sounds like we might be a little bit over. I assume that perhaps the capital and the operating had canceled each other and we were within the total one. Is it possible to get the operating also within the budget envelope?
I know that, I've outlined a number of the strategies that we've introduced to try and minimize that impact, in terms of reducing the calls for service up front and the different strategies in hiring fourth class constables rather than experienced officers for replacement of retirements, staggering our hiring times a little bit more. So we've got a pretty lean budget that we've introduced here. You know, I know that we've even delayed the hiring of the IT person for further on in November to try and minimize that impact. So I do know that it is lean. I can say that, you know, other strategies could be discussed in terms of delaying hiring in the future. But I think as our staffing levels, as you see with the graphs, we're pretty lean in terms of the amount of staffing we have when you include student populations and so forth. So I respect the fact that it's trying to work together on that. And as I say, we've worked closely with Desiree on this and, you know, talked about the strategies and presented what we do have. So I throw that there for consideration. John, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Yeah, when we did the budget last year, we had forecasted between 2.6 and 2.7% for our budget increase for this year. And we were on track to do that, except about those 5 or 6, 7 items that gave us that extra 1%. But so the city had been using our forecast and planning on I think it was 2.62% going that way. But some things like the insurance, that's going up over 10% next year. I had not included that in the forecast, and the other items that Angie listed there. So it's a handful of items that are causing that extra 1% jump.
And if I recall from last year, there was some debate about the horse. First we were cutting it off or getting rid of the horse, and then community involvement suggested that perhaps we could get some donations to do that. Is anything like that happening this year?
Yes, so as again, funding for the horse is completely community-based at this point in time. So we have not put money into that. The raised money flows to us once the monthly fees are paid.
Thank you.
Jared, oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any other questions? Okay, then. Thank you for that presentation.
I have my hand up there, Jared.
Oh, sorry, Christian, go ahead.
Thank you. So I have a series of
Christian, you're breaking up.
questions with a report and would be provided the budget documents.
Christian, we can't understand what you're saying.
Shoot.
Any suggestions for Christian in the?
Shall I try again? Still breaking
Yeah,
up.
it's clear now.
Let me try to keep it short in the hope that it stands up. I was hoping that we might be receiving a written annual report as discussed at last year's budget meeting. I'd hoped that we would be provided with the budget documentation before the board meeting for us to consult. It's very difficult to follow things on the fly. I wanted to ask whether the full $75,000 for the mounted unit was indeed raised. And I wanted to see whether we can tie the budget increase more explicitly to the objectives that you had outlined at the previous meeting as a way to clearly justify the increase, not simply as a function of growing costs for the service, but tied directly to the service's ability to meet its objectives as laid out by you a month ago.
So a copy of my written notes, is that helpful for you?
Whatever you're able to provide, I think both in terms of retrospect and forward looking would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay.
And on the, was the $75,000, I think was the figure for the mounted unit that you had cited last year. Was that figure raised?
Yeah, we've got, the last I checked, and that was probably about a month or so ago, it was over 35,000. And so there was more opportunities for publicity to be happening. So I have not checked just recently, but certainly we realized that the intent is that it needed to be raised for 2 years. So understanding that for sure.
Because my understanding was that there was a commitment, I believe a firm commitment, that if that money was not raised by the end of November of 2021, then that would mean that the mounted unit would cease. That's at least what my notes reflect. So, so I just wanted to see whether how close we're getting to making sure.
Yep, I actually thought it was the end of the year, the end of December, but that's how I thought.
Fine.
It was.
I don't.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we're
Yeah.
able to meet those targets.
That's fair.
And
yes.
I was hoping that we could tie the budget increase more explicitly to the objectives that you had laid out a month ago, so that the public can clearly understand how any increased resources for the service directly meet the service's strategic objectives for 2022.
Okay, so that should be in the notes then when because it's in the statements that I've given you as in terms of the costs, but I'll highlight that for you then too.
Just the notes is good, and then I can circle back to you with questions, and we can always take it up at the next public meeting. Thank you, Chief.
Sure, thanks so much.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Chief, for the presentation. So that will close unfinished business. New business is a board policy update, a memorandum dated October 14, 2021 for the board secretary, from the board secretary, regarding the proposal board policy regarding a performance review system for the chief of police. So that'll be moving forward, and that will be with this is with the new suggestions and the new regulations being brought forth by the province. So can I have a vote on that? Bridget? Jeff, all in favor? Very good, thank you. Okay, Christian as well was there, noted. And then if we can talk about the November meeting, it's the conflict with the OAPSB labor conference date. I think we discussed that. I think it is probably recorded.
You speak up, Jared.
Pardon me?
Could you speak up a little bit?
I guess the board, the question would be if we change the date of the meeting. I'm not so sure that's a necessity. Other conferences have been recorded. I imagine it'll be the same. So I would suggest that we just keep the date, and may I have a vote on that? Keeping the date for that monthly meeting next month. Okay. Jimmy might not be.
One more question, Jared. Did you want to have a second special meeting for the board to approve the operating capital budget? Or defer that until the regular November meeting?
Yeah.
It would have to be approved prior to whatever date is set by council for presentation to council.
That is in November, is it not? Jeff? Bridget? So maybe we'll have to have a special, we'll do a meeting before that to be able to have it on time so the city's able to do their work. And may I have a motion for that? Yeah, all in favor? Good. Okay, thank you. You got that, Donna?
I think so. So Bridget and Jeff, and
Yes.
and Lori will arrange a special public meeting then to do that.
Thank you. Okay. And Christian, did you have a question?
I just had one item to raise before we close out the public meeting, but I'll just let you finish your component.
I am done the component.
I just wanted to ask Chair, with your permission, whether to ask the chief whether there are any remarks with regards to events over the last 2 months and assuring the public that Kingston Police is able to provide adequate and effective
You're breaking up again, Christian.
park.
I didn't get the question.
Whether the chief has any comments on events of the last 2 months in the context of the provision of adequate and effective policing to the community, but we could also park my question until the November public meeting if the chief would prefer.
Chief, that's up to you. I know that, until after this weekend, we don't have the numbers or the costs or anything that's affiliated with what's going on. So whether you choose to answer that question or not is up to you.
Well, you're correct. I don't have all the overtime costs. They haven't come in, and we're waiting for obviously the rest of the month to unfold to see where that all lays. But I can assure you that we have adequate and effective policing here in the Kingston community based on many different things. We, from last year's homecoming and the years before homecoming, we certainly debrief and go through what worked, what didn't work, how can we do better. And so that's been done not only within our organization, but within our community partners. And as you can see, that happens. And then when the move-in came this year, we're really monitoring the difference that happened this year's move-in. We had 4 days of student move-in, which usually only happens on one day, on the Labor Day weekend. But this was spread over 4 days, which tied up a lot of paid duty people during the daytime. So we had limited people to work in the evenings. And so we saw more students coming in the first number of days, because as everybody was moving in, the thousands of students that were moving in, they were accumulating. So we really beefed up our staffing when we could do that. So on the weekend, the Saturday, Sunday, we beefed up our staffing. I know that the mayor had also done some additional work in terms of closing the pier and in terms of having an emergency order that was put out. We upstaffed every Thursday, Friday, Saturday within our own organization leading up to the homecoming event. But even well before that, we were looking at intelligence information that we were gathering. We were watching what happened in the different universities in terms of Laurier and Ottawa and Dalhousie, Western, McMaster, really sensing the temperature of what was happening. They are gauging the things that we were seeing within our own crowds that we were seeing, and we were seeing a lot more volatile behavior. We saw it amongst in our counter cities that had that, where cars were flipped and so forth. So we had a lot of information. Very early on, we partnered with our OPP, with our public order unit, and worked with them to supplement our numbers leading up to last weekend. So, and so we, as you know, we also had Durham that was there as well. So we really looked at that. We've now, rolled that plan out. We worked effectively with all our community partners to develop that strategy, not only the city partners, but individuals with the hospitals, our EMS, the university. So there was a lot of strategization that went in there, and our policing partners, who are the experts in this type of work. And so I have to say that the staffing, we did the best with all that we had, and we really staffed to what we could identify, what the numbers and our intelligence was giving us, and we predicted what that was. So I'm saying that we're very, very good. We were staffed up well. And so going on, we debriefed all this week in terms of all our intelligence and what we're gathering moving up to this weekend. And so tweaking a few things, but I can tell you that we are staffed up, and it's consistent with what we've seen in the past. So.
Christian, you okay with that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Then I will ask to vote to move in camera portion of this meeting. Anyone? Yeah,
Okay.
good. Bridget, Jeff, thank you. All in favor? Good. Thank you, everyone. And maybe we could have like 10 minutes before we start the next part of the meeting. Thank you.